What are you asking the food to do for you? What feelings do you want the food to take away?
Wow, Irena, you look so much better in real person. I got quite a fright when I saw you in the fridge when I opened it just the other day. Such a relevant topic. I have been emotionally eating for as long as I can remember.
Really?
And my lowest point, because I was reflecting on this when I was preparing for it, my lowest point was really, I'd moved from London to Perth, and I was living in Perth, and I was really, really lonely, and I was overeating massively. And then I remember I threw these cookies in the bin, okay, like I'm done. And I literally took those cookies out that bin, they weren't wrapped, dusted the rubbish off, and ate it. It's disgusting, right? It's not my finest moment. But I know that emotional eating is a huge thing for women all across the globe. So welcome, and thank you for being with us in the first place.
Thank you for having me.
And it's funny because when I tell people that I do emotional eating, they look at me and go, "You're right. Look at you, so skinny." Like that's the first thing I often get. So that is actually a misconception. I feel that, you know, just because you're skinny, you don't have issues with eating.
Totally.
But you have a different story. So start off with your story and tell us about that.
Okay, well, firstly, I'm going to reflect on what you've just said. And that is, you know, people have this assumption that if you're an emotional eater, you must be overweight. But the thing is, emotional eaters come in all shapes and sizes. See, the thing is, there's emotional eating and there's also food restriction that could go along with it, and eating disorders. And so my story, that's how my story started. My story started when we migrated here from Ukraine, and I was 11 years old. And I was left to look after my brother who was 1. And I was anxious and lost. And I met Willy Wonka.
Oh, Willy Wonka!
He took me to his chocolate factory. And suddenly all my troubles disappeared. And that's how my journey started with food. And resulted in, you know, many eating disorders, body dysmorphia, guilt, you know, eating, throwing up, you name it, I've had it. And, you know, I've turned around, I've come full circle.
That's so amazing. So, what's body dysmorphia?
Body dysmorphia is basically when I used to look at myself in the mirror when I weighed 42 kilos. And what I saw was a grossly overweight woman or girl or lady. And that's body dysmorphia.
So did you yo-yo between being anorexic and putting on weight, or was it predominantly anorexia?
Well, anorexia led to bulimia because I discovered that I could binge and then throw it up. And so I would eat all day and throw it up. As soon as, you know, it was like a race of getting as much in as I could and then expelling it out as fast as I could. And it really plays havoc with your mind, as well as your body. It's amazing that I haven't lost all my teeth.
They're fine teeth. I can see them from here.
Some of them are crowns. Some of them are crowns. But yeah, look, it's a really heart-wrenching. In other words, when you're throwing up, you're really throwing out your soul, your heart. Like it's awful.
Yeah, and certainly a massive epidemic within our society amongst women.
Yeah, massive. And you know, and I don't want to sound like a cliche, I guess, in saying that with all the social media these days, because in my days, you know, in the late 80s or early 90s, we had the Dolly magazine, we had the Cosmopolitan magazine, so perhaps we didn't have the Instagrams, but I still looked through those magazines and compared myself to the models thinking, well, I could never be like that. And You know, so it's the social media does certainly have an influence.
Absolutely.
But you've got to have you've got to be predispositioned to it. You've got to have a tendency, because not all girls are affected. Let's face it.
And I also feel that social media is just a catalyst. It's not
Totally.
the reason.
Of course not.
It's just the catalyst.
It is the catalyst.
It's just another reason for us to justify the emotional eating and the eating disorders.
Yeah, yeah. And eating disorders are really about, you know, it's a disorder of the mind. It's a perception, it's a belief, you know, it's the belief systems. And I guess for me, the biggest turnaround has been realizing that when you're making a change, it's not about getting your body in shape, it's about getting your mind in shape.
I want to come to that point because you said that for 25 years you were experiencing eating disorders and emotional eating, and you decided to take back your life. I'm interested because 25 years is a long time. Was there something that happened where you just went, that's it? Or was there like a progression of things? What led to that decision for you to go, I'm done?
I guess it's years of experimenting, reading every book on the subject, trying every diet, and coming to the conclusion that it's about acceptance of where you're at and about working on your mind, so working on your belief systems and working on your thoughts, managing your thoughts, because our thoughts create our feelings. And when we're feeling sad or angry or overwhelmed, emotional eaters feed their feelings by turning to food. Just like food is their drug of choice. I guess, you know, for other people it could be alcohol, it could be drugs, it could be anything, it could be gambling, it could be sex. But for us girls, it's the food. That's where we find our comfort.
I so eat for any reason. I was just asking the audience beforehand, like, do you have a question? And, you know, like, often we tell ourselves, oh, we deserve it. You know, I eat when I'm happy, I eat when I'm angry. So it's amazing. So how did you go from, it's not the dieting, it's not all those external factors. How did you then realize, oh, hang on, it's actually internal? What brought you to that decision or that realization?
Sure. What brought me to that realization was a bit of a journey. At my lowest point and at my most desperate point, I turned to Overeaters Anonymous.
Oh, is there one?
Yes,
amazing.
It's called OA.
Oh,
right?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
If you hear of OA,
it's not the OA on Netflix. It's OA.
Is there? Oh.
Yeah, there's the OA.
Hey, no false advertising.
No, exactly. So I went to a meeting, but it just didn't resonate with me. And
what did you not like about it?
Well, the thing is, I'm not one to put other people's methods down, and I believe that AA and OA work for many people. But for me, it didn't resonate with me because I couldn't see a change happening when I gave my power away to something else or someone else and admitting that I have no power.
Is that what they tell you?
That's what they tend to say to you. You have to admit that you're powerless over whatever it is that you've got an issue with. And for me to admit that meant that how could I make a change if I was powerless? How could I give my power away and still have the capacity to create the change, right? And so I was looking and I came across a wonderful group called SMART, right? It's SMART, right?
Just for those of you who can't spell.
Yeah. And what they are about, and this is what actually when I was in SMART, that's what ignited my passion about studying health and wellness coaching, because I realized that it's about the mind. not just about the body. Because exercise is aimed at your body, right? But it's about beliefs, it's about lifestyle maintenance, it's about changing your thinking so you can create different feelings. And then consistency. And that's what I got from SMART.
Oh, consistency is the key.
Consistency is king. It's not the intensity, right? Say, for example, you go to the gym, you decide to go to the gym for 6 hours on Monday, but then you're so exhausted, you can't do it on Tuesday. But if you actually went for half an hour on Monday, Tuesday, and perhaps Thursday and Friday, that's a lot more maintainable, right? And that's your consistency.
Yeah.
Yeah? So there are so many different facets to being an emotion-free eater.
Women in our audience are predominantly business women. So they run successful businesses, often employ many people, have very full lives as well, with family and with everything. If we had to typecast them, they would be like the achiever, typecast.
The perfectionist.
The perfectionist. And I think of my friend when I think of my audience, and I even asked my friend, like, what do you want me to ask? And she says, well, the operative question obviously is, how do I stop? Because she does have, like many of us, that going on the wagon, then falling off the wagon, then going on the wagon, then falling off the wagon. And that alone has so much emotion attached to it. How did you navigate that? Because I would imagine it wasn't smooth sailing straight away. Like, did you have a support group? You said SMART was there for you. How did you navigate the consistency and make that stick for you?
Well, it's an interesting question you ask about navigating the consistency. So I navigate consistency by working on it daily. So I spend at least half an hour to an hour on my own self-development every single day. So I set a vision, not every single day, but I might set a vision for, say, 3 months, 6 months, of where I want to go, what I would like to achieve. And then I set goals, and I write out my goals every single day. And when I write them out, I also ask myself why they're important to me. Right? And I find that cements what it is that I want to achieve. But I'm not perfect. I fall down sometimes.
Is there such a thing as perfection?
No, and that's probably one of the strongest messages that I would like to give out today. No perfection, progress, not perfection, acceptance of where you are on your journey, and then moving from there in small steps.
Because once again...
Without judgment.
Yes, without judgment.
Showing yourself some compassion. The sort of compassion you would show to a friend. If your friend came to you and told you about their emotional eating, would you judge them? No. You'd show them...
I'm thinking, would I judge them?
Well, maybe you would, Petra.
I don't know, would I judge you?
Or would you embrace them and say to them, look, you know what? You've got this, girlfriend. Just go a step at a time.
Yes, and as you say, it goes so much deeper than just eating. And I want to sort of talk about how we view ourselves as women, because that idea of perfectionism comes in light of comparison.
Yeah.
So you have an X is perfectionism because it's measured against Y. So when we live in a world of comparison, we're screwing ourselves, right? So really the operative thing is self-love.
Totally.
Which I know...
Self-care, self-love.
So yes, and so many women know it. They can spew it out of their asses, as I always say.
But I don't practice
obviously,
it.
you know, sexy asses. But, you know, they've really...
I'm just picturing that. That's
It's like, oh my God, don't even go there, especially with the toilet situation.
I know! Organic toilet.
Organic. What I really want to know is, you know, we know all of this stuff, right? And we know what to do, and we know it all. But what can we do to actually implement it?
Sure. So I guess what you're asking me is, how does one practice self-love and self-care?
And how does one start? Because I feel there's a lot of women sitting out there going, that sounds amazing. Sure, I'd love to take an hour out for myself every day, but
Yeah.
dot. So what can we do to help women move away from the but and go, actually, babe, you're worth it?
Yeah, totally. So I guess I'm going to start off by saying that as women, we have been conditioned to take care of others. You know, our children, our parents, our husbands, you know, everything else gets done first and we get left till last. And the problem with that is when we get left till last, we don't have the energy or the enthusiasm to do anything for ourselves. So the way to start is, again, to start small, is to actually identify, ask yourself the reasons. Why am I important? Why does my cup need to be filled first? Because, you know, when my cup is empty, I have nothing to give. So to show up at your best every single day and to be able to take care of others, I think it's important to realize that taking care of you, even if it only means you start off with 2 minutes a day by just sitting down and doing nothing. And I mean nothing, not even breathing deeply. You know what I mean? Fuck that.
Stop breathing.
Just stop for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And just sit and look at nature for 2 minutes. And then see how you feel. See if that makes any difference to your body, to your whole being, to your soul. And that's how you start, and you build on that. So I'm a big believer in starting very small and not judging yourself. Oh, you only did 2 minutes. God, you know, like I think a lot of us set really big goals. You know, I've got to do this for 1 hour because, you know, John Kabat-Zinn, the guy who came up with meditation in the first place, said I have to meditate for 1 hour. I mean, fuck that. Meditate for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And achieve that, because when you achieve that, your confidence builds. And that's the starting point.
With equality these days, women can do so much, right? They can run businesses, they're running families, they're running projects, and often we're just running.
On empty.
On empty, right? So as the show is about practical wisdom, and you've been through this yourself, and I fully acknowledge sometimes when we go through something and we through it, it's sometimes difficult to think back to what we did, right? Like what strategies we took or what steps we took. And I wonder if we can really look at like 3 practical things that we can say to our audience, hey man, just give this a go and start there.
Well, what I'm going to start off with is exactly what you just said. That as women, we're running businesses, we're running families, you know, like we're responsible for the children, we're responsible for the food, you know, serving healthy, nutritious food. And at the same time, we're also expected to look beautiful, to look after ourselves, which is very important, right? And to also show up at work, you know, feeling enthusiastic, motivated. There's a lot of expectations there. But I think the most important question is, what is your expectation? What do you want to get out of that? And I find that identifying your 3 top values in life, right? And it's going to take you a while, because when you Google values, a lot of them will come up. And what I find, what I use with my clients is, I give them the list, they come up with the first 20, then they color down to 10, to 5, and then to 3. And live your life according to those values.
So I just
So question yourself.
Yeah, I just want to clarify what values are, because I want us all to understand, because values, once again, has so many definitions. So
Sure.
What is a value?
Well, a value is something like family, right? That could be, if that's one of your values. A value is something that's important to you. It could be integrity. It could be health. It could be a squillion different things. But when you identify your top 3 values and live your life according to those values, in other words, every project you take on, everything you do, you ask, is this in line with my values?
So I understand values, and I suppose this comes back to emotional eating as the ultimate emotional state that you want to feel. So the ultimate feeling you want to feel, right? So family gives me a feeling of love.
Well, you're talking about emotions now.
So yeah, so this is why I want to clarify this,
Sure.
right? Because when I'm opening that fridge and I'm grabbing for that food, I'm not going, oh, my family is important to me, so that's why I'm going to stop eating.
No.
So what I'm saying to myself is I'm eating because I want to feel in control, or I'm eating because I'm anxious and I want to curb that anxiety, right?
Okay.
So really for me...
But are you aware of that when you're opening the fridge, or are you just, most people just blindly walk to the fridge and to the pantry?
Oh, so that's what I want to sort of bring to. So
Okay.
when you say be conscious of your values, which then to me, for me, that's why I want to really nut this out with you is
Sure.
what does values really mean? Because for me, value is really the ultimate emotional state I want to feel.
Okay.
Right? And so in my life, everything's about feeling. And so...
Feeling or emotion? Because feelings or emotions are slightly different.
Oh, so that's interesting. Tell me about that.
Emotion is a physical state. A feeling is a mental state. So the reason I was talking about the values is because you started off talking about, as women, we are overwhelmed, overloaded. In other words, a lot of women are frightened, frazzled these days. So one of the things that causes women to eat in the first place is feeling overwhelmed and overloaded.
So feeling
Right?
is the mind.
Yeah, right?
Okay.
And so to avoid that feeling in the first place, if you only take on projects in your life that are in line with your values, and everything you do, you ask the question, is this in line with my values? So if your boss asks you to stay at work till 8 p.m., you ask yourself the question, is this in line with my life values? And if it's not, you don't do that. So when you come home, you actually have the opportunity to cook a healthy meal. Are you with me? Because a lot of emotional eating is because you may not have healthy food on hand. You may not be prepared, so you've got junk in the pantry. So there's a lot of different things. Your environment affects your eating. You might feel emotional, or you might have a feeling to eat. But if you go to your pantry and there's nothing in there, right, you're probably not going to get in the car and drive to get it. But if you go to your pantry and it's there, so it's environmental as well.
I'm just thinking, so would one of the strategies then be to have healthy food
On hand?
On hand?
Definitely. There's 3 things that I teach my clients about, right? One of them is food is fuel. So I teach them how to use food as fuel. And then preparation and organisation, which means preparing healthy food ahead, having healthy snacks on hand in little zip-up bags, clearing out your pantry and your fridge of foods that you may turn to when you feel emotional. What is a substitute food you could have? Could you perhaps have a little small protein bar that might give you the same satisfaction as eating a family block of chocolate? Are you with me? Right, of course, I know it's yum. And often with a lot of the foods that women turn to when they feel emotional are the type of foods that are hyperpalatable, right? So they create an orgasm in your mouth, right? So when you take a bite of that chocolate, oh my God, that feels so amazing.
Yeah.
I want more and more and more.
Yeah.
Right? So not having that on hand can be really helpful. Look, sometimes you will get in the car and drive, but the chances of that are much smaller if you don't have it in the house.
So there was three.
There was three,
yeah.
and the other one is a mindset, right? So learning how to manage your thoughts, right? So that you can actually manage your feelings, right? I use a model where you have like the current state, which is unconscious, and the conscious state. It's a little bit more complicated, but what I help my clients do is change their thinking so that they can create the feeling, which leads to action, which gives them the results that they want, which changes everything.
So what I hear you saying is it's really moving from unconscious behavior to conscious behavior.
Self-awareness.
Self-awareness.
So if I can give the audience any tips, become aware of your actions and your thoughts and your feelings. So a lot of people are not even aware of their journey to the fridge. All they know is the awareness sets in when the guilt sets in. But if you can develop awareness about what actually caused me to walk to the fridge, and when I walk to the fridge, can I pause for even like 10 seconds? And perhaps if I pause for those 10 seconds, maybe I can then walk away from the fridge. So there's lots of strategies. That's one. Or the other one is to ask yourself, what am I asking the food to do for me?
Oh, that's a great question.
Do you like that one?
Oh.
What am I asking the food to do for me? And write it down.
Yes, that's a great one. Because what I used to do as well with clients in the past is, as you say, that's an anchor question. I used to have a elastic band.
I was going to mention that as well.
Yeah, that's a great one, isn't it? So when you walk to the fridge, you see yourself and you whack yourself with the elastic band.
And what does that do?
Yeah, it's
creates
a trigger.
Awareness.
Right?
And it's a trigger.
It's a trigger. And as you say, so if emotion is a body thing, did you say?
Yes.
Then that is the emotion, right?
Yes.
To remind yourself. And then once you've got the awareness, you can ask yourself that question.
What am I asking the food to do for me?
What am I asking food to do for me?
The other question you could ask yourself is, am I physically hungry or emotionally hungry?
Ah, that's a great question. Am I physically hungry or emotionally hungry?
Do you know the difference between physical hunger and emotional hunger?
I'd like to say yes.
Okay. So
I mean, obviously physically hungry is when your body feels like you want food.
Yeah, but there's a little bit more to it. Physical hunger comes on gradually. Emotional hunger comes on like a bitch. Slaps you in the face, right?
Okay.
So it's sudden. All of a sudden you feel emotion, right? Physical hunger can be satisfied with nutritious food. Emotional hunger can only be satisfied with chocolate or something that has sugar in it, usually.
Like a quick kick.
You know what it is? Emotional hunger is satisfied with either a combination of salt and fat or sugar and fat. When you think about all the things that people eat when they eat emotionally, they're either chips, which is salt and fat, or they're ice cream, sugar and fat, or muffins, sugar and fat, or chocolate, sugar and fat. It's because those foods are hyperpalatable and they create a sensation in your mouth, taking away whatever you're feeling.
So hyperpalatable means really tasty?
Really tasty.
Okay.
Like so tasty that you just want to keep eating it.
Well, you know what the irony is with hyperpalatable food is that the first bite is like, oh,
I know.
Fuck me, yes.
Yeah. So are you feeling the emotion?
Oh. But then the second bite's like, oh yeah, that's good. And then the third bite's like, And then what I find is that I actually can't, because when I started practicing being conscious eating, I can't actually remember tasting the food. Well, I can't remember tasting the food. I'm like, I wonder when the last time you tasted your food.
Exactly. So you're talking about intuitive eating.
Oh, is that what it was?
Oh, conscious eating, it could be the same thing, right? It is the same thing. I mean, when was the last time you sat down and actually had a meal without being on the run and just enjoyed the food and just tasted the texture, smell, and actually took your time to eat? Because when you eat emotionally, people usually gobble and they stuff their face. No one sits down to eat emotionally, really.
Well,
Right?
I do, but I'm in
with a knife and fork. And, yeah.
Right?
You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
yeah. So intuitive eating is very, very powerful. You know, eating intuitively without devices, without looking at your computer, but actually being mindful and present with the food. Sitting with the food.
You know, I did that. I did a practical philosophy course, and it was about being aware of what you do. And you know how difficult I found it to
fucking
sit
difficult.
down,
Yeah.
look at my food, watch it go into my mouth, close my eyes, chew it because I wanted to chew it a lot so I can actually be conscious of chewing. Physically watch it, not watch it. I can't see it inside my mouth.
Sure.
But
Feel
physically,
it.
like feel it move around the mouth, then swallow it. Actually pay attention to it going down, then waiting, then taking another thing, and then doing it again. I found that
Very challenging.
excruciating. I was like,
is.
oh, for fuck's sake. Like,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's so
yes.
much easier just to, gobble
Stuff
it
it
down.
down.
Yeah, but the thing is, some people can gobble food down and never eat emotionally. But then there are people like us who can't do that. So I think accepting where you're at and what your tendencies are is very powerful. Because once you accept something, you don't fight it. You actually look for strategies to live with it. Does that make sense?
It does. And it's such a huge topic. We're like,
It's
just
a topic of its
skimming
own.
it. Yeah, skimming
Yeah.
it, and that's the whole point. So so we can become clear, how do we know for ourselves that we are emotionally eating? I'm careful, very careful here, not to label myself an emotional eater, because I am not an emotional eater. That's
You
not
are
who
not
I am.
You are not your behaviour.
It's my behavior. So I think
Exactly.
that's a really important
Very
point
important.
to understand is you are not an
Your
emotion.
behaviour. You
It's
are
a
not your
behavior,
behaviour.
so behavior can change.
Totally.
Right? So I think that's a really important point as well, and a really nice strategy to stop going, I am an emotional
Yeah.
eater. Because
You're
that
just
somehow
confirming it.
confirming, and also
Yeah.
somehow suggests you can't change.
I have a tendency to eat emotionally.
Yeah, amazing.
Or I have a tendency to use food for comfort.
Right, and so what we're talking about there is the self-talk and becoming aware of the self-talk.
Oh, that's another huge topic of its
and
own.
that's a topic of its own.
And that's the thoughts, you see. We have 60 to 80,000 thoughts that go through our heads every single day. How many of those thoughts are we aware of?
So really what I hear from all of what you've said, and you've given us some great strategies, is becoming aware. It's
Becoming
awareness that
mindful. The word mindful is so overused, so I'm not actually going to use it. But becoming aware of what you're thinking, what feelings those thoughts are creating, right? And questioning those thoughts. Questioning some of the limiting beliefs, some of the thoughts that, where you say to yourself, I'm hopeless. I'll never get over this. Well, you could try and saying, where does it say that I'm hopeless? Who said that I'm hopeless? Right? So you question every single thought that's not serving you to move in the direction that you want to move in.
Yeah, I do love that. And I really feel small. Start small. Because once again, we've just mentioned so many techniques. Please don't go ahead and use all of them.
No,
because
just use one and get good at it.
And
that's where consistency comes in.
Yeah.
Because, I want to just very quickly mention, I don't know how much time we have left, the compound effect. What is the compound effect?
I don't know, you tell me.
Okay, so the compound effect is the effect of tiny little actions that you take over a period of time. It might only be a month, but imagine if you consistently questioned your thinking for a month. What would that mean to you? How would you feel in a month's time?
So compounding, which is great, because if you look at it in the business sense, it's you compound your interest or you compound whatever. So that makes perfect sense, right?
You can compound good behaviour, or I'm not going to call it good behaviour, I'm sorry, I take that back. You can compound healthy behaviour, or whatever word you want to put in front of it. It's really important to actually watch the language that you use with yourself. Just like you, when you reflected before and you said, you know, I don't label myself an emotional eater. That's right. Because if someone believes that they're an idiot, imagine if they label themselves as an idiot, right? Perhaps they could say to themselves, well, maybe, you know, I'm not able to accomplish something at this stage, but it doesn't make me an idiot. It doesn't mean that I never will. So questioning, they're called empowering questions. Asking yourself questions, questioning your thoughts and your beliefs.
Yeah, I really like that question you said before. What do I want food?
No, what? So if you're not hungry,
yes,
or tired, and you go to eat, ask yourself, what am I asking the food to do for me?
What am I asking the food to do for me? I'm going to practice that one.
That's a very powerful
because
one.
that's a powerful
and write
question.
it down. Grab a book, grab a diary, grab a pencil or a pen, and start writing every day.
Yeah.
Pour out your feelings. When it's down on paper, or I prefer when my clients write, because when you write, it really sinks into your mind. Typing it into the computer doesn't seem to be quite as good, but it doesn't mean that you can't do it. But start writing down how you feel. It is so empowering.
Yeah, there's a direct correlation, between head and pen, right?
And then reflect, read. And if I can just leave you with one more tip, asking yourself either every day or every second day, what has gone well for me today? Celebrating
the wins, right?
What am I happy about? Right? And another great question is, what do I wish for?
I really appreciate the feedback, because with anything with coaching, there are it's such a big thing, and you know, we could talk so abstractly, but it's really great. Like, that's why I keep coming back to that question, because I think that question is a very, very powerful one, and I really like it. And I think they can just grab it and run with it.
Yeah, well, the thing is, when you ask yourself questions, you also believe in your ability to come up with an answer, because the answer doesn't always come up straight away. But you know, you might be in a supermarket and you'll think, oh my God, I asked myself that question 2 days ago. That's the freaking answer. And you'll just probably jump up and down, you know, the supermarket assistant will look at you like some loony, but who cares? It's such an interesting journey, getting to know yourself.
Yes, and it's the best journey you could ever take.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's a never-ending journey.
Yes.
And I think when you accept that, because, you know, people say to me, well, what is the solution to emotional eating? It's not that there's a solution. It's a journey you go on, and you find your own strategies, the strategies that work for you, because we're all different. We're all unique, you know, like it's...
The one, I used to call it a journey, and a beautiful friend of mine who's so much more advanced in her journey, she said to me, it's not a journey, it's an inquiry.
Yes,
and what I
is.
really liked about that is, once again, journey suggests an external path.
It does.
And it suggests a destination.
You've got to turn inwards. You've got to look at your landscape.
Yes.
Your answers, all your answers are inside of you.
So that's what's an inquiry.
Yeah, I like that.
Right, me too.
I might actually use that. I like it.
Use it.
High five.
Good friends.
Yes.
This is where we share resources out of this show.
Awesome.
So, of course, you are an emotional eating coach and help women with this all the time. So tell us where we can find you and find the wonderful wealth of knowledge you have.
In the fridge in Coles? Just kidding. You can find me online. I do a live video. Well, when I say live, I post blogs every 2 weeks.
Yeah, what's the website?
It's irenageller.com.au.
So Geller is Geller.
Geller.
Did you have to think about how this works?
I did actually, yeah. .com.au.
Amazing. Yeah. And then all your like social media links and things.
Yeah.
So
I mean, my mission is to really help women get in touch with themselves. not to love themselves for who they are, to discover their inner landscape and to turn inwards for their answers rather than outwards where they're asking people, what do I do? What do I do? You've got all the answers inside of you. You just need to stop and look and trust. That's it. It's not as simple as that.
I know. I mean, I hear you and I totally acknowledge that. I also just really, one thing I really grappled with when someone told me that was, well, if I have all the answers within, why do I need to go and get some help, right? And I was constantly then going, well, if I've got all the answers, then surely I can fucking figure this shit out, right? But what I did realize is, one, why do it on my own if someone's already done it and I can just follow that model, which is so much quicker? But also, I am my greatest bullshitter.
Exactly.
Like, fuck me,
and
I'm
sabotager.
so good. Yeah, I'm so good.
We're all so good at it.
And if I could have figured it out myself, I would have.
Yeah. But the thing is, look, not everyone needs to go and get help. I've had a massive amount of help. And I still coach with a coach once every couple of weeks because I believe that I'm number one in my life. And, for me to keep progressing, I don't know everything. And so I guess the best way to describe what a coach does is a coach helps you to find the way to go inside.
Yeah. Because we don't know how, because we're so busy looking externally.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, I once did group therapy, the best experience of my life.
Groups work for some people, yeah. You know what? Some people love, I coach in groups or one-on-one.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And it depends on your personality. Some people are very private.
Of course.
And they like the attention, the one-on-one attention, where some people thrive in groups. Again, it's all individual. I don't want to say we're all unique. I mean, that's just, so cliche.
We are all unique.
But we are, we're all, I don't know, we're all very special, I believe.
Last question, and always my favorite. Irena.
Yes.
What is your red hot truth and how are you living it?
My red hot truth? What is my red hot truth? My hair? My red hot truth is the fact that I believe that I'm as free as a bird, right? And I believe that no one can cage me. And I live my life according to that, which means I don't really care what someone thinks about my hair or about me, right? I live my life according to me, to my freedom. That's my red hot truth.
And that's an awesome one. Well, Irena, thank you so much for sharing your practical wisdom.
Pleasure.
I'm really looking forward to seeing where you go with this. I love interviewing women on fire like you because we are all working together so strongly. So thank you for sharing your wisdom.
My pleasure.
Today. It's been so great. High five, sister.
Thank you.
Thank
so
you.
We're all sharing and I believe we support each other.
Always
the more we support each other, the more we stand together, the more powerful we are.
You see, this is when you put two talkers in the room together.
I know.
Thank you, Irena. It was lovely.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me. Thanks, Petra.
Hello, fabulous woman on fire. I trust that this interview helped you get closer to your red hot truth. So give it a thumbs up. Remember to subscribe. Thank you for supporting the Red Hot Truth, and we'll see you next time.